Welcome back. As we kickstart off with our conversations this morning, the African Peer Review Mechanism, in short APRM, is a mutual agreement instrument voluntarily ascended to the African Union member states as an African self-monitoring mechanism. Now, the APRM is often described as Africa's unique and innovative approach to governance, with the objective of improving governance dynamics at the local, national, and continental levels. The APRM Day is commemorated on the 9th of March each year to look at the key governance developments in Namibia following the joint session of the 3rd Extraordinary Summit and the 34th Ordinary Session of the APR Forum of Heads of State and Government. To tell us more on this, we're now joined in studio by Ambassador Wilfred Emvula, who's the Chairperson of the African Peer Review Mechanism National Governance Council. Ambassador Emvula, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Bapewa. Good morning, listeners and viewers.
All right. Just to get into it, since ascending to the APRM in 2017, Namibia has undergone a targeted review on youth unemployment. Can you just talk to us about the progress made so far in that regard?
Yes, Bapewa, but maybe to give you a short background on the APRM. The APRM was created as a program, a mechanism, by the African Union member states. And it was created after the founding of NEPAD, which is the New Partnership for Africa's Development. Now, NEPAD became a tool for the development of Africa. Yeah. It was later on observed by the member states and the heads of state that in order for us to develop together, we have to align our principles and also create a level of being at the same level when it comes to governance, issues of human rights, rule of law, and development policies. So it's after that that the APRM was created as a tool for self-assessment, self-critique, in a fair manner, an independent manner, but you allow other countries to also know that what you have done in that process is fair, frank, and it can be critiqued by anybody. So that is why the APRM was created. Okay. And it concentrates more on the areas of governance, political governance, management, social development. There are 5 critical areas of concentration. The last one being the resilience and taking to shocks, and that was more created after COVID in order to see if disasters strike, how do we act, how do we behave. Now, we have done quite a number of things. Namibia, as you said, acceded to the African Peer Review Mechanism in 2017 as a declaration by Cabinet and supported by Parliament. And as such, we became the 36th member of the APRM now, out of the 51 member states. Okay. In 2020, a decision was taken by the African member states to make sure that by 2023, all AU member states are to become members of the APRM. Initially, it was like a voluntary accession, but it was expected that by 2023, all member states are to be members of the APRM, just not to allow those who are sitting back to just sit and watch, but also to become part and parcel of the process that is aimed to bring Africa at the same level. Now, maybe I should also say that the APRM was created in a sense that the self-assessment tools that are being used are African. Yes. Initially, before that, we listen to what others have got to say about Africa. Their critique, their assessments would never have been the same because the conditions from which they are operating are different from ours. So that's, in short, the APRM. Now, as we acceded, we came to look at what are the critical areas that we need to concentrate on that may have an impact on governance in order for us to match up to the level of other African member states and beyond. And we found that we have got a critical problem of youth unemployment. So in 2019, we undertook a self-assessment review to look into what this unemployment within the youth component can do, and especially how it can influence governance. Because if you have got unhappy youth population there, and of course, mind you, Namibia and Africa has got a larger population of the youth. So you may expect somehow problems, because whatever policies you adopt may not speak to the interest and the needs of the youth. Out of it, a report came that was presented to all stakeholders, and I should hasten to say that the self-assessment that we do is an all-encompassing exercise, including civil society, private sector, clergy, academics, and we also involve our National Statistics Agency, because when you talk figures, you need to give updated figures, and therefore one of our serious partners in this assessment, self-assessment, is the National Statistics Agency. Okay. The Bank of Namibia also, when it comes to money to be spent, money to be used, would also normally assist in the right figures when it comes to finances.
Right.
Yes.
Ambassador, apart from youth unemployment, what other issues or key areas of concerns is the APRM Namibia focused on?
When we do the self-assessment, you look at all aspects of governance, and that comes from local levels. Traditional authorities are involved, local authorities are involved at the level of regional governance, the regional councils, and then the national government, normally represented by cabinet through the administration by the office of the Prime Minister. Now, you look at, because it's done in terms of interviews, desktop studies, calls, and normally to do it, because we are not the experts, we hire a technical institute. The technical institute that normally does the assessment would be one of your reputable national institutions. In the case of our targeted review on youth unemployment, and through a tendering process, we identified the University of Namibia. So they were our partner in doing the self-assessment. So as I said, they would go to the regions, they would go to the local authorities, interview people in order to find out what are the real problems, what are the critical issues, and how do people view them? How are they going to be addressed? How long may it take? So once that draft report has been drafted, it comes to us as a National Governing Council, because ultimately, nationally, we are responsible. And we then look at it on the basis of its factuality, look at the figures, and making sure that it's up to standard. And then we present that to government, government being cabinet. And once government has gone through it, we then also take it to the stakeholders in order for them to see whether, in fact, what has been collected in terms of information is according to them as they presented it to the National Technical Institute. Now, after that, we call upon the Continental Secretariat, which represent the APRM at continental level. They normally send a team of experts in all fields of governance, political governance, corporate governance, management, in order for them now with their experts to also go through the same process, do interviews in the regions, local level, come to national, engage private sector, engage civil society, clergy, and all the stakeholders. And after that, the report is finally presented to government for their comments. They may not change the structural setup. They may not change facts in the report. The report normally provides a unit whereby they can only comment and maybe put certain facts right for the reader to understand that, yes, this was the opinion of government.
All right. Now, looking at Namibia's participation in the APRM, and can you just talk to us about its governance milestones since 2017?
I would say that it has helped, because this is not an isolated exercise. Once that report has now been adopted, it goes to the Forum of African Heads of State of the APRM. And Namibia then, at the level of head of state, present the report to the other heads of state, members of the APRM, whereby they make comments, they make inputs, they may criticize where they feel Namibia is not doing right. And from that process, we engage and learn from others where the recommendations can be opted. Now, I should also say that out of every report, we craft a national program of action. Now, that national program of action is also arrived upon through the same process, going through all the recommendations in the report. Now, the recommendations then are lifted into a national plan of action that is submitted to all stakeholders for them to be able to see where they will be able to assist in implementing those recommendations. I should say that at the level of after we have undergone our first review, country review report, I should say that we have learned quite a number of things in terms of what is going on in government. Yeah. We have moved at more or less the same level of understanding, because this exercise, in fact, helps government to identify areas that might not have been come out from their own processes. So by going to the people, these needs, problems, challenges are lifted and put at the eye of government and all stakeholders for them to see and concentrate. So this national plan of action is then the tool that helps us to implement the recommendations. Mm-hmm. Now, at the National Governing Council, we have got a duty to now go into the monitoring and observation mode in order to look at what are those recommendations that has been implemented, which are still outstanding, try to assist in referring them to the relevant stakeholders in order for them to concentrate. Right. I should say that when we finish after the targeted review report, we have got a responsibility to give biannual reports to the Forum of Heads of State at the African Union level, because we also have to indicate to them that this report was not put away on a shelf somewhere. The National Plan of Action has become dormant. We have to report in order to see, for them to see what we have done in terms of implementing those recommendations. All right. Now, out of the targeted review report, for example, just to point out a couple of things. We have seen, for example, that our level of development need our education system to concentrate more on vocational training. So you will see, for example, now that government has taken up a duty to provide more money towards vocational training, because it's practical. It helps young people to go out there and be able to do something for themselves. We have seen that the NAST, for example, has taken up a program of mentoring, because one of the lacks that we have seen is that students are graduating, but in practical sense, when you put them to a job, they cannot perform because they don't have that experience. So NAS have got a program where they do mentoring in order for them to get these students ready. The other issues are placement in terms of apprenticeship, and many of the companies, MTC, Telecom, mainly the mining institutions and mining companies, have taken up quite a chunk of program of internships. We have also pinpointed programs for government to take up internship in all ministries and all agencies. And I think this has now become more or less a norm, where every office, agency, and ministry has got a program to put students and graduates through internship.
All right. Ambassador, the year just started off, but what are some of the other engagements that we can basically look forward to for the remainder of the year? And equally, just to touch on, Namibia planning to undertake the targeted review on the state resilience to shock and disasters.
Yeah, that is one. You see, as you get into the field, you immediately realize that in this area there is a problem. We need to concentrate on it, because the report that you were busy doing was most probably not concentrating proper on that particular area. So we have, therefore, because state resilience and addressing issues of shocks was only coming in after we have finished our first country review or targeted review on youth unemployment. But it is surely something that we need to look at in order to assist ourselves. If such an issue breaks out, how are we going to handle it?
Yeah.
Which are the institutions that will be put at readiness? And therefore, that one of those aspects that we need to look at is to undertake a review in that area. But also, one of the areas that we have critically looked at during the crafting of our country review report is the decentralization aspect. And surely that is also one area that we target of bringing out a report, because we have got a problem really in that area of decentralization. It's a policy, it's a law, but the implementation thereof lacks. And therefore we need to look at what is that we need to do. You know, some of the students and academics would talk about maybe decentralization is not really the aspect, but devolution, in order for you to really devolve issues of governance to the levels where they belong.
Yeah.
Because for decentralization currently, as we have found, they decentralize responsibilities, programs, but then the rest do not follow in terms of resources, both human and financial resources. So those are the two areas that we're currently having in mind, but we are also looking at popularizing APRM more at especially local and regional level. And through that process, we have undertaken already a popularization, familiarization, experience sharing, information sharing mission to most of the regions, Kunene, Umsati, Ohangwena, up to Oshana and Oshikoto. We are now in the second half going to concentrate in the areas of Umaheke, Komas, Karas and Hardap.
Okay.
Now, because you want people to understand what this APRM is all about, why do they come and collect interesting information that touch on our livelihood and our lives, on the economy, but we don't see much happening? Sometimes it's just because people are not informed as to what has happened after this report was done.
Yeah, perhaps just to add on to that, but what role can NGOs and civil societies also just play in strengthening the APRM processes?
Stakeholders, as I have said, NGOs and private sector and everybody involved are our very close allies in terms of inputs first, because they are on the ground. You can never negate the fact that of the importance of our civil society movements and organizations. They are right at the doorstep, and they know what's happening. So we get more closer information from their side. And them being stakeholders, of course, they would want to see that some of the aspects that they are trying to address that they might not have the capacity on in terms of human and financial resource can be taken up in that report and become part of government programs. Private sector, of course, when we talk about training, for example, we train mainly for the private sector because they are using those products, and the better they are sharpened, the better in terms of them making good use of people with good capacity and would be able to perform better.
All right.
Yes.
Well, Ambassador Emvula, thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Thank you so much for all the information on the APRM, and all the best with your future endeavors.
Thank you very much for having us, and we hope that we are going to have regular talks on this topic because it's very at the heart of government and the development of our people.
All right. Well, that was Ambassador Wilfred Emvula, who is the chairperson of the African Peer Review Mechanism National Governance Council, talking to us about the APRM, saying that it's often described as Africa's unique and innovative approach to governance, and the APRM Day is being commemorated on the 9th of March. Well, more conversations coming your way. Don't go anywhere.